I want to make a video about my thoughts concerning gambling, Counter-Strike Go, and potential laws that could be put in place as a result. For those of you who don't know, the very popular online shooter game Counter-Strike Global Offensive is currently being examined by a politician from Australia whose name is Nick Xenophon. He has announced plans to introduce a bill is aimed towards tackling gambling in video games and the prevalence of how underage users can participate in that gambling in these games. As of the making of this video, there have not been many specifics of that bill. It's supposed to take place or be introduced near the end of August.
Good morning, Jane. Well, he wants to see an end to what he says is gambling in video games. Now, it currently works like this. Companies have online games where, as you are playing, you're given an option to pay money to give you a better chance of winning. So, instead of just playing, kids can link a credit card and use it to give themselves a better outcome. Now, Mr. Xenophon says this is misleading and deceptive, and before parents know what's going on, they've handed over hundreds of dollars, sometimes even more. Now, he wants to introduce legislation which could see this practice made illegal like it is in Japan. As well as this, he wants to better police games that are played in online communities where people, would you believe, place bets on the outcome. Now, this is an industry worth around $10.5 billion worldwide just this year. Jane, Mr. Xenophon argues this is grooming children to gamble.
The poor journalism of that video, coupled with the Today Show in Australia's accompanying tweet, show that there's a huge segment of the population, even in modern big journalism, that just doesn't understand the nature of games and the effects that these systems in games have. That being said, it just highlights the importance of trying to get as many sources as you can when you look up information on this topic. But, based on what I've heard, Counter-Strike Go could potentially undergo a lot of changes should these laws pass. For instance, being rated to adult instead of just M for mature. Because, for instance, in the ESRB system, adults-only games can contain gambling with real currency. Now, I don't play Counter-Strike Go myself, it's just not my cup of tea. However, it's very important to state here that Counter-Strike Go contains gambling. I'm not saying that's bad by any stretch of the imagination. There's nothing wrong with gambling, in my eyes. But it is gambling. It's not a game of skill like blackjack or poker, it is gambling. And underage users, children, they should not be gambling. Period. End of story. It's illegal for them to gamble, and it is illegal for gambling institutions like casinos and such to allow them to gamble. This is the main problem that Nick Xenophon seems to have with the system, is that it allows very easily for underage users to participate in the gambling of Counter-Strike Go. And while most people believe it probably is sensible to try and keep kids from gambling with real money, especially if that money is not their money, it's also important to know a few things. Nick Xenophon himself had implied that these sites and these games are grooming children to gamble in the future. In fact, he's quoted as saying, "There are lots of unwitting parents out there who don't realize their kids are being groomed to gamble this way." And while I'm not at all against the idea of making sure that kids under the legal age do not gamble, I'm almost always instantly skeptical of a new law or a new series of legislations being introduced, especially when it affects a hobby of mine. And while I don't think that Nick Xenophon is doing this for bad reasons, he seems to be pretty consistent across the board in a political sense for his stance on gambling. It does make me wonder a few things about this proposed legislation. Allegedly, under the new legislation, game-seeking payments for items could become illegal, which would be not good at all. That would be bad. That would be a bad thing. Especially because the wording in this specific article of that is so incredibly broad. You could call DLC payments for items in video games. Cosmetic DLC is also payment for items in games. Map packs are payments for items in games. And even if they're referring to the fact that you can sell the things yourself for the items that you have acquired in the game, I think that's bad too. It says also a minimum age could be enforced, and games could be made to carry warnings. That seems odd because I think we already have that. Adults-only games say it is content suitable only for adults ages 18 and up. It may include prolonged scenes of intense violence, graphic sexual content, and or gambling with real currency. So when we take Counter-Strike Go, how come Counter-Strike Go isn't already classified as adults only if we're keeping with the right proper definition of these ratings? Counter-Strike Go isn't really violent. You just shoot people and they flop over, and then some Russian tells you in his native tongue what he's going to do to your mother. It doesn't have any graphic sexual content because, yeah, sure, you could blow people to pieces in video games and that's not a problem, but, oh, don't you show a titty. We can't have the kids seeing a breast. But it absolutely does have gambling with real currency. Why isn't this game already rated adults only under that regard? And I really hope that the ESRB does change their ratings on games if legislation does start coming in, and it will eventually. It's only a matter of time. Remember when drones were starting to become a big thing? The little portable robots people could fly around. Originally, when they came out, there was no rules, there was no legislation on them, but as they became more and more popular, it became necessary to make limits on where you could use them and what you could do with them and things of that nature. Gaming as a market is changing. Gaming as an industry is changing, and that's not bad that there's gambling in this game. Again, I am not anti-gambling at all. People should have the freedom to do with their money whatever they feel like, as long as the odds and as long as they're told everything up front. Nobody walks into a casino knowing that they're going to walk out with money. They can fool themselves into thinking that, but again, they know what they're getting into, and it's their money, and personal freedom with your stuff comes before, gosh, a lot of things. But can you imagine seeing this on the Counter-Strike box or on the Counter-Strike store page, rated A for adults only? And then you get into the game and wonder, why is this adults only? Oh yeah, because of the gambling aspect of it. Because of the fact you can randomly spend money to perhaps get something. I mean, a lot of games do this. A game I play all the time, Dirty Bomb, it gives you the option to spend money on special cases to give you better odds at getting different characters of different rarities in it. I mean, it's absolutely gambling, but they tell you potential loadout card rarity: silver 71%, gold 24%, cobalt 5%. You know exactly what you're getting into, and they give you the statistical odds of what you could get in return for it. But to call Dirty Bomb adults only, just like to call Counter-Strike Go adults only because it has gambling and real money, I think that would confuse the rating system with a lot of people who think that adults only instantly replies to associates itself with games that are of sexual nature. Obviously, you have games like Hatred, which don't have sexual content in them, but they are rated as adult only. And I feel like keeping the current classification may muddy the waters with a lot of consumers, especially a lot of consumers who will buy the products for kids or for other people. If a grandmother or someone's mom saw Counter-Strike Go and they had, say, a 16-year-old kid who wanted to play Counter-Strike, there's no reason why any 16-year-old can handle, obviously, Counter-Strike Go. There's nothing in Counter-Strike Go that I would consider adult-oriented. But again, once you get money involved, things change. It's theorized that this could lead to special warnings or special notices on games, and I think that would probably be the best way to go about this. Whenever you see a game on Steam, or whenever you see it on a box, on a shelf at a store someplace, just right next to the rating, if it had a symbol or an icon or a disclaimer that said that there is the option to spend money in this game, real-world money, for a chance at in-game goodies, I think that would be incredibly appropriate. I think if I was a publisher or a developer of a video game, especially if it was Dirty Bomb or Counter-Strike Go, and the ESRB said, yeah, you have to put a label on your game now that it's adults only, and it's not even legal for you to sell this game to someone under 18, yeah, I would have qualms with that. Especially from a content perspective, there's zero reason why a 15, 16, 17-year-old shouldn't be playing Counter-Strike Go or Dirty Bomb. There's nothing in terms of violence or sexuality in those games that, God, really anyone couldn't handle. I could show my grandmother videos of me playing Counter-Strike or Dirty Bomb, and she'd be like, what the hell's going on? Also, I'm tired. When we look to the quote from Nick Xenophon that says that these games are grooming children for gambling, well, I don't think that's true. It's just exposing them to gambling. I don't think it's grooming them to gamble. I don't think people have a natural inclination to gamble in dangerous ways or in harmful ways to themselves. But what other things could we construe this way? And that's the thing about laws. What other things could this possibly affect? I think we've all, at one point or another, bought, for instance, a pack of trading cards. Now, isn't that gambling? Don't tell me that trading cards aren't gambling. I mean, you open a pack of Magic the Gathering cards. You open a pack of Yu-Gi-Oh cards, Pokemon cards, Duel Master cards. You remember Duel Masters? I do. It wasn't that bad. The show was just retarded. And Neopets. Remember Neopets? I do. I remember Neopets. I was born in 92. I was the prime age for this kind of stuff. But don't tell me that that's not gambling. You're paying, what, $3, $4 on a pack of random cards? You can get a bunch of stankers. Or you could pull a super rare mega whatever card it was. I mean, for every card that had a holographic Charizard, there was a... I don't know. What's a really shitty Pokemon card? Caterpie. See? First gen here. Yeah, that's right. Well, now we got to start putting ratings on warnings on trading cards. You don't want kid. Yeah, and how come a kid can buy trading cards with real money, and that's gambling, but now he won't be able to play a game? You see what I mean? What applies? What doesn't apply? Where does one draw the legal line between what a minor can buy, or what constitutes as gambling, and what does not? Because the second you say, well, we're going to have to put a warning on this product because it's gambling with real money, it's only a matter of time before someone says it reasonably follows that this too should have a warning upon it. Let's look at another aspect of the reasoning behind this. I mean, I don't want kids being able to, and I think here's one distinction that should be made. When you are going to Target or to a mom and pop hobby store in town, and your kid goes in and he brings $3, $10, $15 of his allowance money, or his birthday money, or Christmas money, or whatever. He has that money in his hands. That money is real. That money can be felt and touched and smelled. If you have smelly money, though, I mean, don't leave it in your pocket for too long, okay? Especially not in the summer. But he walks into that store with money in his hands. That is a real, physical item that he owns. That money is not a concept. That money's not a number on a screen. That money does not feel like it's leaving you when you spend it. When you go to Amazon and spend $10, that $10 is, it's a number in a bank account. It's a number on a computer somewhere. It's not a $10 bill that you have physically taken out of your pocket and with your own hands given to someone as they give you something else in return. It is much easier for a kid to understand in that regard the concept of spending money on a risk, because he's giving up physical items. He's giving up the actual bills. But when a kid sits down with Counter-Strike Go and he's connected to the internet and he for some reason has access to the credit card that does not belong to him, then he can sit there and he can spend other people's money all day. Then I'll go and vote for Bernie Sanders. Oh, that's right, I went there. But when you have a 16, 17-year-old kid, well, 16, 17, they're not really kids. When you have a minor who is playing a game like this, and he has the option to spend basically an unlimited amount of other people's money, a lot of them will fall into that temptation, and they will abuse their parents' wallet. They will be Motherfucker Jones. Of course, this all comes down to not letting your kids have access to your credit cards. And if they do have access to your credit cards and spend your money without your consent, you should beat them. Yeah, I am absolutely advocating for you to beat your children. You should beat the shit out of your kids. You need to get the message across. Get out the belt, bend them over the coffee table, and fuck their asshole. Well, I mean, wording. But if that's ultimately the problem here, if that's the main concern of this bill, with not the fact that it's unregulated, not with the fact that you can spend money in these games, but the fact that it's kids doing the spending, then how come you're not going after the parents? How come you're not going after the lack of supervision for your kids? All right? And I've noticed this a lot. I did not grow up with video games. And a part of me encourages parents to not let their kids play video games until they get to a certain age. I did not grow up with video games. I did not grow up with really an internet connection almost at all. Getting on the internet for me was like a joy. It was special. It was like a treat to be able to connect to the internet. I had to do shit like go outside, exercise, read books, draw, and use my imagination. I'm not saying that there's no imagination in video games. I'm getting off onto a tangent, okay? What I'm saying here is, if the parents of these kids are not paying attention to those kids, if they are not watching their kids, if they are just giving their kids free reign to do whatever they want to do, then what the hell will this bill accomplish? Because if it all comes back to the parents supervising their kids, what will this bill accomplish? Because you can have all the rules and all the laws in the world. If the parent doesn't know that their kid is using their own credit card, then what's the point? This seems to be a law that's somewhat designed to... Obviously, it's meant to be for the children, which can be a stunningly disingenuous reason to put a law into a system. Remember, schools are gun-free zones to protect the children, and we can see how well that's working out. I don't think that Nick Xenophon has his heart in the wrong place here. I don't think he's doing this in mala fides. Of course, the road to hell, yada yada. I'm all for laws that make sure kids can't gamble, because they shouldn't be gambling. But I think the core issue here is, if it's all up to the parents, and the parents aren't doing their job as parents, what good will a lot of this legislation do? And what is the potential harm it could have on the games that millions of people enjoy?